Elle gonna kill everybody. Elle gonna kill everybody. Woo! Let me tell you, this was some crazy TV right here. So much happened. Let's just get right into it. This is episode 2, Through the Valley, and boy, did they take us down through there. So they start off with an alarm going off at the Firefly camp back in Salt Lake, and Abby is walking toward the room where her dad was killed, and herself told her not to go in that room. But she went in there anyway and saw her dad dead. And then she wakes up, looks outside, and realizes that Jackson is not just some tent city that they walked up on, but it is in fact a whole town replete with guns, guards, and dogs. And they still don't even know if Joel is down there. And then Abby was like, well, we can kidnap one section of the guards and just make them tell us where Joel is. And the crew was like, girl, what? They were like, you already told us that you weren't going to hurt anybody except for Joel. So we're trying to figure out if they don't talk, then what are you going to do? And you can already kind of tell that most of the group doesn't really want to participate in this, but they said they would help her out. But you could tell that this guy, Manny, he might be about that life. I feel like he is ready for this. And then Loverboy, also known as Owen, was like, I got concepts of a plan. I just got to let it crystallize. He stayed disarming her because she's like all googly-eyed for that man. I'm guessing that's her boyfriend or somebody she at least likes a lot because he tells her what to do and she listens. So she decided, hey, I'm going to take the next post to give your plan time to kind of come together. So she gets outside to her post and she's like, oh my gosh, be for real. An hour out in this? You could tell she didn't like it. But girl, you the one who decided to come all the way over here. And so while she was out at her post, the other teammates, they kind of cornered Owen while he was making some coffee or something. And they were like, so what's this plan? You don't really have one, do you? And he was like, oh, I do have a plan. And I have a plan to tell her, let's go home. Because if we come down to those folks' town and start messing around and start all kinds of problems, the only people that's going to end up dead is us. So then we get back over to the Miller's house and Jesse is beating down Elle's door. He was like, hey, I came to get you up for this 8 o'clock patrol and I like to be on time. And he was like, I heard you had one crazy night last night. And Elle was like, see, she kissed me. I did not kiss her back. He was like, I was talking about the Seth and Joel situation. What are you talking about? Oh, so you was over here making out with Dina too? He was like, see, you're in love with Jesse's girl. He was like, oh, I'm just playing. I heard about it. He was like, that was kind of messed up though. And then he closed the door. And they weren't together at the time, so it really doesn't matter. They seem to light switch it a lot, so they'll be back on at some point. So Elle gets ready, and then they're walking through the city, and they see these people pushing barrels and checking weapons and stuff. And Elle is like, what's going on? And Jesse was like, well, a couple of people were outside of the gate. They were kind of looking around, and they found some frozen infected out in the streets. That wasn't a problem until about 30 plus live ones came from underneath them. It was almost as if they were using them as insulation. And honestly, this makes sense because, in last season, they were talking about how they drove the infected underground. And then you got that pipe from episode 1 that had the kind of strain inside the roots of the pipe. The pipe is underground. It sounds like they got a better part of the deal right now because they are underneath the surface and it's warmer down there. Meanwhile, the humans are up on this surface just cold as ice. It just keeps getting colder up there. And this also kind of goes along with the story of the smart infected because it actually is learning how to survive. And so now they're questioning how many infected are underground. I also had that question, but we'll find out sooner rather than later. Now, one person who was in kind of disbelief of the underground infected was Elle. After all she went through last season, for her to just sit there and doubt the possibilities is crazy. And Jesse was like, well, also somebody told the town a ghost story about smart infected and freaked them all out. And then she was tired of him. She was like, you know what? No offense, but I'm going to do patrol with Joe. And he was like, you mean the guy that you've been avoiding like the plague? That guy? And she was like, we're good now. And he was like, really? Because last night, and then she just went ahead and shut him up. She was like, you know what? It's complicated between me and Joel, but we're good. So everybody can stop worrying about us. And she was like, I'm going to go hit the patrol with Joel, and it's going to be like a daddy-daughter kind of work day. So just leave us alone. And Jesse was like, that's cute and all, but he already went out about an hour ago with Dina. He wanted to go with you for the record, but he said it would probably be better to let you sleep. You see how that works when you push people away? See, he wanted to be around you, but he realized you needed your space, so he decided to give you that space. So you wanted space and you got it. Now you got to spend some of that space with Jesse. And Jesse was like, hey, we got to stop over at the restaurant because Maria wants to chat with you real quick. I don't know what it is. Don't ask me no questions. So when they get in the restaurant, the townspeople are having a great conversation about what to do in case of emergency, where to go, just in case the infected breached the wall, all that kind of stuff. It was a lot going on in there, but it was necessary. So after that conversation, Maria takes Elle over to Seth, who's working behind the food counter. And so Seth actually apologized for his behavior at the New Year's party. He should not have even thought that. And he even made them a couple of steak sandwiches for the road on their patrol. And the way he wrapped it, I said, oh, this is an apology sandwich for real. Look at it. It just looked like it was in pristine shape. So he did his part by apologizing and making the apology sandwiches. And Elle did her part being 19 because she did not care. She was like, I ain't trying to hear all that foolishness, boy, bye. She was like, let's go, Jesse. So we're back at the lookout post and Abby is just freezing. But just as she was getting ready to leave and head back to the lodge, she hears a horse neigh and she sees two people down there and she decides to take a closer look. Now, the incoming winter storm made it very hard for people to see, and it was getting much colder. So Tommy told dispatch to call the patrols back to Jackson, but they were too far out. So Jesse and Elle sheltered in place at a 7-Eleven store, and it was full of that ganja that Eugene had been growing. I sort of felt bad for the horses, because I was like, this is a real storm. Y'all got to be outside for real, bruh? I know sometimes they just want to be horses in a stable, horses in a stable. At least they were in a garage, and they had plenty of food in there. So they were having a conversation, and Jesse was talking about how Joel had to kill Eugene and not having a choice. He couldn't be helped, apparently. So I'm wondering if he just turned into an infected and got killed. They didn't really say why. Meanwhile, Abby is over here trying her best to get close to this patrol, and she couldn't get a good enough grip in the snow with her boot to kind of climb down. Instead, she just slid all the way down the hill into a den of frozen infected. Then all of a sudden, she felt the earth move under her feet. So it seemed like her little misstep with those boots was all it took for the ground to become unsettled, and that little infected that were underneath in the microwave on popcorn, they came out hot and ready. And let me tell you, it was way more than 20 or 30 that was chasing her. They chased her all the way over to a wall where she found a ladder. She climbed over, slid down, but then they ran to another side where it was a loose little wire fence, and the whole crew just attacked that fence. It was absolutely terrifying. I mean, she was quite startled by their tenacity trying to break through that fence. They kept pushing to the point that it almost collapsed on her, and she narrowly escaped, but not before one of the infected jumped her, and she was fighting for her life. And then someone shoots the infected in the head, and while Abby was getting her wits about her because the gun kind of rang off in her head, and someone was reaching for her hand, and I was like, I just knew it was going to be Joel. And it had to be him. He saved her life because without him, she would have been overtaken by the infected for real, because she dropped all her weapons sliding down in the snow like that. So when they get inside the shed, she's hiding behind a pillar or something like that. And all of a sudden, Dina's yelling Joel's name. And so once she hears his name, she's looking for her weapons instead of thinking about how she could save her own life while this infected is outside. And I was like, oh girl, the vengeance and anger is strong within you. She sort of reminded me of that woman that was looking for the two brothers last season. Her blind rage caused her to get killed. So Abby, you better watch out, girl. Now Dina was like, where did they come from? And then she was like, well, where did you come from? And Abby was like, I came from the mountain. And now Abby is acting a little bit weird because she knows who she's in the midst of. And they're trying to think of survival. No, they can't go back to Jackson without freezing. So Abby was like, well, we can hit up the lodge that I'm staying at. Maybe there's no infected up there since they're all down here. And then Joel made the mistake of thinking he was with an ally, but woof, what luck you have. Now, Tommy is over at dispatch, and I believe her name is Amy. And she was like, I've heard from everyone except for Joel and Dina. And then Tommy looked at her and was like, try again. And again. And again. And he even tried to tap in, to no avail. And Tommy was like, hey, try to get him every 10 seconds until they respond. And so dispatch keeps trying to reach him, but then she eventually starts reaching out to other people like Jesse. And she says, have you seen Coppermine? We can't seem to locate them. And you can see the urgency and fear on Elle's face. So she and Jesse run out on a rescue mission, and they have to split up because there's not much time. They got about 20 minutes tops. Meanwhile, back at Jackson, they're still doing their work in this cold weather, and one of the construction guys cracked open that pipe. He removed some of the roots and found some of that smart strain, and the strain was like, hey, you found me. How you doing? And that's when everything changed, because Joel, Dina, and Abby were running from the infected mob, but the mob got called home by their roots. They even added reinforcements and said, baby, why don't you just meet me in the middle? And so they stopped following them and ran straight to Jackson. The construction guys were running as fast as they could to get over to Tommy to tell him what was going on. And then the watchman was looking out the binoculars from the tower. At first he didn't see nothing, and then, he was like, man, I'm hearing some stuff. So he looked again, he's like, I still don't see what I'm supposed to be hearing. And then all of a sudden he looked and he saw all these people running at him. He was like, now, Let me go ahead and put these things down because I know I ain't seeing what I think I see. But he looked through them binoculars and he saw all those infected running at the city. He said, baby, you can ring my bell. Ring-a-ling-a-ling. And so they started to prepare for a battle. And I gotta say, the infected are absolutely the rudest because why would you pick such a cold day for all these shenanigans? And I also gotta talk to the town people. Like, who told y'all to work on such a cold day? Had y'all been at the house, y'all would have been chilling and y'all wouldn't have disturbed the warmth amongst the roots. So I guess once they cracked that pipe open, Mother was like, oh, y'all got some nerve. I was warm and nestled in this pipe, just minding my business. But since y'all gonna disturb my peace, I'ma lay waste to everything and everyone that y'all love. And let's see how y'all like that. So Joel and Dina are almost at the lodge when they notice that Jackson is under attack. And Joel is like, we gotta go back. And Dina was like, we won't make it. And Abby was like, ooh, I'm not going to let this man slip out my sight. She's like, we almost there. She couldn't care less about Jackson. She came for one thing and one thing only, and she wasn't going to let him out of her sight. She was like, I don't even have to go to the city to get him. And outside of that pipe situation, she's the reason the infected are activated in the first place. The crazy thing about this show is it seems like every time somebody's trying to get revenge, the infected show up as if it's like a metaphor for something. And Abby was like, we got blankets, we got ammo. Hell, we even got blunts. Whatever your desire, we got it. She was even like, my friends can help you get back. We can help you fight. I was like, oh, she's just gonna lie to get everything she want up in there. So Joel was like, okay, fast. So they hurried to get to the lodge. And let me just say, everybody was killing the act in this episode during a real winter snowstorm. This is why we watch. So back over at Jackson, you have the infected. They're attacking this main side real tough, but they not having luck over there. And they decide to, shift gears and go on to another side, see if they can break in somewhere else. And then all of a sudden you see Big Boy. Big old Jerome Bettis, Ray Lewis, Steven Jackson, Adrian Peterson looking thing showing up as reinforcement. And I was like, oh yeah, they definitely about to get in. And Tommy knew that they were going to breach too. So he ran back there with the flamethrowers. So the bus broke through the front lineup and the other infected ran through right behind them. The townspeople definitely had a fight on their hands. And it was kind of funny because like two of the flamethrower guys, they saw the infected running in. They said, you know what? They were like, this really ain't for me. So I'm going to go ahead and take my leave. And so Maria was actually shooting really well. She was trying to shoot at Big Boy. And Big Boy diverted his attention to her. He was like, oh, so you going to shoot me from afar? Baby, I'm about to come over here and show you what time it is. Big infected Terry Crews was about to run up in that building. And Tommy recognized what he was about to do. So he started shooting over at Andre the Giant and was like, come over this way.
He's a good man, Savannah. A good man.
Now, I just knew that Tommy was going to have to use every bit of that fire on E Honda because that thing was a biggin'. And I was trying to figure out how it was going to die. And he definitely used every bit of what was in that tank. And when he ran out, I was like, ooh, it was very nice to know you, Tommy. You were quite the valiant soldier. But it turns out all that firepower took Goro down. What a relief. So Maria is able to get down into the space where they hold the dogs, and she let all of them out, and they were ready to go. They should have been out from the beginning. See, this is where the flamethrower men should have gone. They should have gone and let the dogs out. If you're going to be a coward, at least go help some people out. So back at the lodge, the others are out looking for Abby, and then Joel and Dina show up with her on horseback. And then they get in to warm up. And Mel is trying to prevent frostbite from Dina's hand, and Joel says, grab the blankets and the ammo, and we're out in 3 minutes. And then Abby took control of that situation in the room, started sharing names of her team. This is Dina, and that's Joel. And that's when everything got sticky. Because Manny pulled the gun on Dina, and Joel wasn't really paying attention because he was on the walkie trying to yell and see if he could get a hold of Tommy. And it wasn't until Dina yelled Joel's name that he turned around and saw what was going on. And he got ready to reach for his gun, but then, of course, Owen was like, nah, don't do that. So they took Dina and Joel's weapons, and then Abby went ahead and told Mel, hey, go ahead and put Dina to sleep. And you could tell that Mel didn't really want to put her to sleep because she was actually trying to take control of that like frostbite situation. I didn't really like Abby's tone with Mel because she was like, if you don't put her to sleep, I'm gonna knock her upside her head. And I'm like, why are you so aggressive, girl? You said you were only trying to kill one person, but it sounded like you're trying to kill more. And she needs to stop talking crazy to Mel like that because, the next person she could put under is you. You better stop playing with those quiet ones. So they end up putting Dina to sleep. And then Abby started asking questions. She was trying to ask Joel, do you know what we are? And he was like, military, fireflies. And she was like, haven't you heard? The fireflies don't exist like that anymore. And then she started making sure he fit the description. She was like, he about 6 feet tall, has a scar on his face. And she said, well, he is kind of handsome too. And then she asked, what was the last place you remember seeing the fireflies? And he confirmed Salt Lake. And she said, well, at least you're honest. And so now she had the confirmation she needed to know that she was dealing with the right person. And even going through this situation, Joel was trying to figure out how he could get back over to help the people at Jackson while she's interrogating him. And he was like, I saved your life, which is true. But she was like, what life? And turned around and proceeded to try to blow his knee off. Even kind of startled her team a little bit. And then she told Mel to tourniquet his legs so she could savor that moment. Then she started interrogating him further. She was like, do you even remember how many people you killed? Of course, she had the tally for him. She was like, you killed 18 soldiers and one unarmed doctor. And she was like, that doctor was my dad. And then she started talking about how the nurses said he barely even looked at the body, just walked past him on the way out the door. Now, Abby, let's be real. Your dad was not memorable in that moment. If anything, he was in the way. So what was Joel supposed to do? Stop and examine the body? Do an autopsy? Truth be told, your dad was kind of asking to be shot. And you're wrong. He was armed. He had 2 arms, unnecessary words, and he literally picked up a scalpel and told me, I'm not going to let you take her. You know what he wasn't armed with? His listening ears, his thinking cap, or a can-do attitude. The instructions were pretty simple. So the fact that Joel made it to that room tells you that he's the boss because he shot everybody that was in the way to get there. So when he finally gets up to the room and he says, hey, drop the scalpel, move away from the girl, and you fix your mouth to utter the words, I'm not going to let you do that. It sounds like you're trying to tussle, and I don't want to have to go through all of that because I just had to shoot my way through 17 soldiers before getting up here to y'all. So for the sake of time, I'm going to put your smarts on the outside of your garments and I'm going to come over here and get this girl, which I did. And you know who didn't give me no problems? The nurses. They turned around when I told them to. Didn't even have to say Simon Says. You know why? Because gun trumps Simon. So Abby, I get why you're upset because that's your dad and all. But he made peace with that choice. He decided to put himself in the way of the gun. Unfortunately, the nurses didn't tell you the story in that way. And given your closeness to your father, you probably wouldn't have heard the story in the way that they told it anyway. So then she tried to bring up this code that she was taught by her militia leader or whatever. And she was like, you don't kill somebody who's unarmed. And she said, my dad was unarmed. And she's like, I'm going to break that code to kill you though. And then she looks over and sees a bag of golf clubs and she's just feeling herself. She is soaking it all in. She was like, oh, I've been waiting on this moment for so long. And then Joel just cut her off. He was like, man, shut this shit down and go ahead and just finish it. Damn. He was tired of her. That was essentially an eye roll of a phrase. And she was like, you don't get to rush this old man. And she proceeded to give him a beating for the ages with that golf club. Meanwhile, Elle is still on the search. She sees the tracks leading up the hill. So she's getting ready to walk up the hill, but then she looks back and she sees that Jackson is under siege and on fire. She looked back like, girl, what y'all got going on back yonder? But she continued up toward the lodge. And at this point, by the time she gets up to the lodge, you know, Abby done broke the club and now she's just going straight to fist. And at this point, she is punching a semi-conscious Joel. I mean, his face is all puffed up. You could tell that Mel is not feeling it. She's over here crying. Even Owen was feeling some kind of way about it. So when Elle got in the lodge, she could hear that upstairs there was commotion going on. So she could hear Abby screaming while she was punching. And when she got inside of that door, the first thing she did was try to pull the gun on Abby. But Manny grabbed her just in time and stopped her from shooting. Then she shot in the air by accident. But it wouldn't be Elle if she didn't have her knife on her. So you know she sliced him real quick. And homeboy was absolutely pissed. He was trying to fight her, but they ended up putting her on the ground and just holding her. She made it in just in time just to see Joel alive for his last moments. And it was a very emotional scene. She just kept yelling at Joel to get up, and he was not moving. Now, I was hoping she was going to get in there and just in enough time to save his life. However, she didn't. And he kind of had it coming. My thing is, if you're going to go on the type of rescue mission that Joel went on, you take everybody out. You don't leave any witnesses. So that lie he told Elle, 100% caught up with him. So had Joel left no witnesses, Abby and crew would not have paid him a visit. And the thing is, we know why Joel did it. It was very admirable. I mean, courageous even. And I wish you would have told Elle that version of the truth before this moment. And Owen at this time could see that things were getting out of hand because now you got an uninvited guest and Abby has been taking long enough. So he went ahead and told her, hey, go ahead and end this, which she did. And that sort of killed a part of Elle as well because that was the closest thing she had to a father figure. Now I got to say that Abby and crew, they did come to do what they came to do, but I feel like they're no better than Joel because all they did was pretty much pass the energy of vengeance on to somebody else. Because now 11 about to turn into Beatrix Kiddo the rest of the series.
Beatrix Kiddo. Here.
And she's going to want to take her time on Abby and then Manny. Poor Mel, you know, you just guilty by association, girl. You probably going to go down too. But maybe Dina will say you showed her mercy. Because Elle definitely said she was going to kill everybody. And while she was yelling this, Manny gave her a swift kick to the ribs. Because he was still pissed about that slice that she put on him. But nobody told you to touch Elle. and you underestimated the possibility of touching somebody that you don't know. So the crew left, and Elle was just on the floor distraught and in pain, so she had to crawl her way over to Joel, and she eventually made it over to him, took the golf club out of his neck, and laid there with him for a little bit. And I wish she would have had this kind of energy for him while he was alive, because she was clearly upset with him because he lied to her. It's clear that she loved him. The problem is people think they have more time with folks than they actually do. So they end up wasting time on things like holding grudges and not talking to a person. Then when they end up dead, you end up freaking out and talking about your regrets of not doing X, Y, and Z when there was actual time for you to do it. I also wish that Joel would have told her the truth up front, because their relationship probably would have been different. Imagine what that relationship would have looked like had he said, you know, they were about to cut your head open and kill you, and I couldn't have it, so I went over and shot up the whole place and took you home, because I love you a little bit. That way he could have been like, you know, I don't know if I killed everybody, so they might be coming for me. Hence, Abby and crew. And they won this round, but it is far from over now. It's going to take time for Elle to heal, and she's going to have to bury Joel, but she'll see you sooner than you think. And then Jackson is trying to recover from fight night, so that'll take a while. So that was pretty much the episode. It was a heartbreaking one, and it was well acted, but also very captivating. I don't even know how they're going to top this episode. The show has so many lessons to learn from it. And it's so funny because even during the apocalypse, people are like, I want revenge at all costs. Even with a whole host of creatures chasing y'all are still like, yep, I want to go kill that person over there, instead of learning how to really work together. So what did y'all think of the episode? Did y'all pick up on anything that I missed? Feel free to leave a comment down below and hit that like button. Subscribe if you can, and hit that notification bell so you know when I drop new content. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.